Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of WYTPod, the online community for e-commerce entrepreneurs and business owners. Now, today we have a very special guest with us. He is the founder and owner of ZeroOats.com, and his name is Hunter Williams. Hunter, thanks a lot for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me here, Mark. I'm excited to kind of dig into all the stuff we're going to talk about today.
Great. So let's get it going then. First of all, so we can just get to know you a little bit better, would you mind sharing a little bit of your background?
Yeah, so just a little bit of background. I'm from North Carolina, the Raleigh area, and grew up here. And I've been an athlete my whole life. So I was a football player, went to play football at Wake Forest University. And being an athlete, I've always been super passionate about health, fitness, nutrition, and everything. And I guess, every one of, you do podcasts and everything, everybody talks about, do you have like your entrepreneur story where you're selling a lemonade stand or whatever? I never really had that, but I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So my dad owned a landscaping company. So that was just my world. It's kind of what I knew growing up and what my experience was. So after I played football, I tried to do the whole NFL thing, wasn't good enough, didn't make it there. Which is probably a blessing in disguise.
Very few are.
Yeah, and I played linebacker too, so I definitely had my fair share of headshots and everything. But it was still, I still love football, and I've got 3 younger brothers, and they've all played as well. So it's definitely something that I enjoy, and also kind of tying into what we're doing with business. One of the motivations I had with the business. But anyway, so
what did you think of that? Of the Tua Tagovailoa, what happened to that guy? I mean, that looked pretty scary, didn't it?
Yeah, well, at least now we're more cognizant of what's going on there. Because when I played, and I've been done playing, my last year was 2015. And I played in the ACC. So at that time, they were just starting to have like this concussion review protocol during games.
Yeah.
Where they would have a doctor evaluate people, and they would have a doctor in the booth that would like be looking for people the whole game to make sure. But it's weird because the player, and I have been in this situation, the player is always going to say, "Coach, I'm good." I remember, and this will probably be frowned upon, but I can tell it. So I remember my senior year, we were practicing and we were playing Notre Dame at Notre Dame that week. And we weren't that good, but it was my senior year, and it was kind of, Notre Dame was maybe ranked like 3 or 4. It's like, there was no way I am not playing this game. And the Thursday practice before the game, which is more of a walkthrough practice, I remember I collided with a receiver in practice. Yeah. And both of us, because we weren't looking, we were going like full speed when you're breaking on the ball. And both of us went down, and I had been hit so much in the head before, I knew kind of how to throw the trainers off. And I was like, okay, get up and just act like everything's cool. And he was down, and he was out for another week or so. And I was like, in my head, I was thinking, there's no way I did all of this, like went through little league, high school, and all the stuff I went through college to not get to play against Notre Dame my senior year. And so as a player, that's what you're thinking. And I know that's what Tua was probably thinking of, like, hey, put me in the game. My team is important to me.
He was like, oh, it's my back.
Yeah, exactly. But the problem is those started to compound, and you saw it the next week when they played the Bengals, that he probably still had some shock going on and everything there. And, that's when you saw the hand lock up, everything. So It's scary. At the same time, I think the NFL is doing a better job of trying to monitor this stuff, but there's a reason that everyone loves football. If that stuff wasn't there, if you didn't have that nature of the game, it'd be probably as popular as golf is. But there's a reason that on Sundays in the fall, that's what everybody watches.
There's nothing I love more than watching a big tight end just rumble down the field and run people over. That's my favorite play.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. So sorry, I guess we got sidetracked a little bit, but it's great to talk to you about that because I'm a huge football fan. So
yeah.
All right, cool. So let's get onto your business. What inspired you? I kind of know already, but if you'd like to share with everyone, what inspired you to, start selling oats online?
Yeah. So the previous 6 years, I have worked as a residential real estate agent. And through that process, I started when I was 23 years old in real estate. knew absolutely nothing. My background in college was in finance, so I thought I was going to work in an investment bank, work on Wall Street, all that stuff. I did that actually briefly and absolutely hated it. I was like, this is soul sucking, and I don't want to do this for 10 years and then show up and realize that I hate it one day. It's like, I'm out. So I moved home, got my real estate license. I was like, at least real estate is a business that you can start on your own with a little amount of money. And through that process, I got really, really good at understanding the nature of digital marketing. Now, by no means am I an expert or guru, but I taught myself a lot of these things related to online lead generation, sales funnels, CRMs, automations, and all those things. And I got really good at understanding that. And that's actually what helped propel me to have success in real estate. A lot of people get into real estate, especially the residential side, they're like, oh, I want to have my own schedule and be my own boss. And for me, I was thinking, how do I build a list of people that I can possibly transact with? And when you focus on that every single day, that led me to have success. Now you get to the point in real estate, usually depending on how fast you move, it's 4 or 5 years in, where you're actually really busy and you're successful, but you hit this threshold of, hey, I can't really work any more hours that I'm working and scale what I'm doing. And other people have done this, but it was not something that I had the desire to spend the next 10 years working on. And you kind of go from this vision of, okay, I've got to make money today to what am I creating that's going to have intrinsic value in the world 5, 10 years from now? And one of my mentors is a guy named Jay Campbell. And I remember I was kind of in this phase. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I was like, I would love to do something around health, nutrition, fitness, maybe start a healthy food brand. I'm the guy that walks into a grocery store and will be there like an extra 30 minutes because I'm looking at every ingredient label. Yeah. Because that's how conscious I am of nutrition and I'm passionate about that stuff. I'm like, oh, this is a health product, but it's not really healthy. And so that's something that I was just always passionate about. But my mentor, a guy named Jay, he had actually built a skincare company via e-commerce, and he's kind of a smaller time influencer. And he was explaining to me about all these things. I was like, man, that's really cool. I would love to do something in the food space to create a product that I would buy at the grocery store and sell it via e-commerce now, because that's a possibility. Whereas like 15, 20 years ago in the CPG space, it's an old boys network of trying to break into retail distribution channels and everything. And so I was like, I've got this idea. What if I could create a sugar-free flavored oatmeal? Because oatmeal is something I eat every day, but I have to flavor it myself with natural flavor alternatives, because all the flavored oatmeal you get from the grocery store, really online, is going to contain some sort of added sugar in it. So knew like nothing about food business, CPG. I knew the kind of the internet infrastructure, didn't know as much about e-commerce, but at least from like the internet side, how to build websites. Okay. Yeah, like how to go through all that. So I started working on that. I was looking back actually the other day. I filed my LLC in September of 2021. So it's been a little over a year now, but it took me probably like 7 months to understand what it actually means to have a food business, how to clear all the regulatory hurdles, how to order ingredients from suppliers, how to get your product formulated and made. So I kind of went through everything, just trial by fire. Hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but I think there's the book. It's Ready, Fire, Aim. I was like, I've got this idea. I've got a vision for it. Let's buy the website and just go in and figure it out as we go. So that's kind of what led me here. But as far as the business itself, it was something that, a lot of people will get into these like super data-driven analytics of what product should I create and who's the exact Arthur avatar of who I'm going to build around. And for me, it was like, I've got this problem. I want to solve it myself. And I think it would be something that other people would also use. So we're still kind of in that testing phase of figuring that out. But, a lot of people in the e-commerce world, they're like, you got to have an exact audience and person, which is true to an extent. But for me, this was just something that I am really passionate about. I wanted to build a product and bring it into the world and see where it went.
That's it must be very rewarding to do what you love and what you care about. That's fantastic. So it doesn't even feel like going to work every day, I guess.
No, it's definitely one of those things which I have always kind of been more of the opinion of like, I want to be excited about what I'm working on. And for me, that could be even doing something as simple as like spreading mulch in people's yard, because I grew up landscaping with my dad. But when I have the ownership stake on it, and I know that what I'm working on is bringing value to someone, that they're excited about what I'm bringing them, that motivates me. And so a lot of people kind of get stuck in this trap of their lives of, I've got to work to make money, to live, to do all those things. And if you open your eyes and see there's so much opportunity in the world, it might not be something that you're super passionate about, but you find that along the way. And I had always kind of dreamed of doing something related to health and nutrition. I didn't know it would be an oatmeal company or anything like that, but all the experiences I had kind of led me to get there.
Cool. I remember in my younger days, I used to lay tile. I used to be a tile setter, and I got a real pump at the end if I had a happy customer. They saw the finished work and they were really happy. So it was very rewarding.
Yeah.
So I get where you're coming from. I do. All right. So what are some of the, you mentioned some already, but what are some of the other challenges that you faced when you started your e-commerce business, and how did you overcome them, like with supply chain issues or things of that nature?
So yeah, supply chain is definitely an issue. The first thing for me was actually figuring out how to source ingredients. And obviously that's still a work in process, but to go from, okay, I just experimented this with this formulation in my kitchen, to now I've got certain vendors that have the exact supply of what I need. Luckily, I've kind of crossed at least that initial chasm to get there, where I know who my vendor or who my suppliers are, how long it's going to take me to get the product so that I can work on doing the inventory. I think one of the initial hurdles for me was going through the regulatory process of launching a food company, because I had no idea how to do that. So first, I actually was thinking I would need a co-manufacturer to do this. And so I was going to co-manufacturers, and they're like, well, we want 25 or 50 grand. And you may or may not like the product that we bring to you. Because I had the idea of what I wanted them to do. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to build this on my own. And I found out you can go to commercial kitchen route, where I could bring the ingredients on my own, have them produced in a local commercial kitchen where I'm kind of controlling the process, and then get a standard operating procedure built around that. And then hopefully once we get to the point where co-manufacturer is a viable option for us from a cash flow standpoint, I already have everything structured. So I just have to go to them and be like, hey, here's going to be the suppliers, we'll send you the ingredients, and then this is going to be the process. So that was actually, like, looking back, I'm very glad I did that, because a lot of these co-manufacturers, you kind of go to them with an idea, and then you have no idea what you're going to get back from them.
That's right.
That was good, but that was definitely like the longest part of the process, was getting all those things ironed out, especially when you're trying to navigate the industry and you don't have any contacts or anybody that's kind of guiding you along the way. But I would say from there, once we got all of like the infrastructure and all the legal stuff, all of that dialed in, the next part is, okay, yeah, and it took us like 8 or 9 months to get there, because I had a ton of flavor iterations that sucked. That people were like, wow, I wouldn't feed this to my dog. To now where we know like 90% of the feedback that we get from in-person events and online is that, wow, this is a really good product. So once we got to that point, the next point is, okay, well, how do we get the world to know about it? Because you could have the cure for cancer, but if nobody knows about it, nobody's going to buy it, and you're not going to have a viable business. So that's kind of the next phase that we're at. I understand a lot of the paid traffic side of things, and I even have funnels built that were working well, but it's always the what I would call like a 30-day cash flow cycle of being able to spend money on paid traffic, hopefully break even on the front end to acquire customers. And
Sure.
Really, and that sounds like you sound kind of disconnected from the market when you talk like that, of like, hey, we got to break even to acquire customers. But really all that's doing is convincing someone that you have a solution to their problem. And if you can figure out how to do that, and we've run those and we've had good success, but it's one of those things, like, you never know where your cash flow is at, because you're always waiting on, first of all, like the return from the sale from your payment processors and everything. And then also, to one of the biggest things about our company is we want people to be a repeat customer. And the dynamics are tough of like a unit economic standpoint, of getting to that point of, okay, like in the first 90 days, what percent of people are going to reorder, and what am I doing from a branding and communication perspective with those customers to convince them to reorder? Because most of the people, it's kind of funny, even without that good of a back end follow-up sequence built, they'll get a sample of our product, and immediately within like 1 to 2 days, they'll come and place a bigger order. So we know through reviews and just the behavior of people like that
it tastes good.
Yeah, exactly. They're not like going and then throwing it away. But yeah, I would say the biggest challenge right now is taking something when you have a good product, and then getting as many people to find out about that as possible. So that's
Right.
kind of the right now.
Absolutely, that resonates, and that's a familiar story. When I talk to other entrepreneurs, yeah, how do you spread the word? And you are solving a problem, because I think everyone can relate that it's really difficult to find high quality food that's not killing you slowly or not so slowly. And then if you do, you have to drive a couple places. You have to, look through 5 different products. As you said, reading, I'm like you. I read, it's harder for me. So I'm like this. So I'm standing there reading all the ingredients. First on the list is sugar or a partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. Put that one down.
Yeah, don't get me started. That's like another, when I'm done with all this, or I don't know when I'll be done with it or if I'll be done with it, but that's like a huge passionate thing. I'm like, we have to transition people from understanding that vegetable oils are toxic and
processed oils are so evil, right?
Yeah,
it's crazy, and people don't know it. So it's criminal what happens to people. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and must be, like I said, it must be rewarding. So what's your best-selling flavor?
So the most reordered flavor, because the way we structure it is the front end offer that we get most people through, whether it's through paid traffic or just doing stuff with influencers, is a variety pack. So we have 4 flavors. There's classic, which is kind of the maple and brown sugar flavor. It doesn't have enough of a maple flavor, but it has like hints of that. So we call it classic. And then we've got blueberry, toasted cinnamon, and French vanilla. And funny enough, when I started, I actually had an apple cinnamon flavor, and it's very, very difficult. Maybe one day down the road we can get there. It's very difficult to get a sugar-free apple flavor, to have something that tastes like apple but also does not have any sugar.
Okay.
So we went from that to a toasted cinnamon flavor, where it's a little bit more of like a cinnamon spice, and we use Vietnamese cinnamon, which is a little bit more spicy than your traditional cinnamon.
You don't say. Vietnamese cinnamon. Okay.
Yeah, so
Wow.
It's
Expert
more of like
insights we're getting here. This is really cool.
Yeah, it's a little bit more. So you have like regular cinnamon, which is just kind of your standard processed cinnamon. And then one of the more fine tunes is the Saigon or Vietnamese cinnamon. And then you have Ceylon cinnamon. And they all taste like cinnamon, but there's like a little bit of a different taste. But the Vietnamese cinnamon is kind of like that spicy. If you think about like when you chew a big red gum, it kind of has that like spicy kick to it, but it's still sweet. But that actually is our best-selling reorder flavor. So when people try the variety pack, they get to taste all the flavors, and they come back to the website and order. They can order just one flavor through the website. That's the one that people reorder the most.
Cool.
So.
And cinnamon has mad health benefits that most people don't know about as well.
Yeah, it's actually a glucose disposal agent, meaning that it helps regulate blood sugar. So even if you were just to take it alone, it will help keep your blood sugar lower. But it's great because oatmeal actually, for most people, is going to have a positive insulin response, meaning that you're not going to spike your blood sugar through the roof like you would if you ate a Pop-Tart. But when you pair the oats with the insulin, you're even getting a little bit more of a kick from a blood sugar regulation standpoint. And so maybe it's something too, people realize that at a subconscious level.
Yeah, cool. Nutmeg also is effective there, but not as effective as cinnamon, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, great stuff. Cool. And what's your personal favorite flavor? Which one do you like?
I'm a vanilla guy. Like I love vanilla protein powder, vanilla everything. So I really like the vanilla. I think all the flavors are good, but if I've got all of them in my pantry and I get to choose what I'm going to eat, I'm going to go probably with the vanilla. I like them all, but I love the vanilla because it has a more of like a cakey taste. So it's kind of when you pair it with the oatmeal, it kind of tastes more of like has that like vanilla cakey type flavor that you would get, which is nice.
Okay, cool. I'm feeling that. All right. And What's your strongest market, like on two different levels? Like, where are you shipping most of your oatmeal to? And also, what's your demographic look like if you have that data?
Yes, I don't necessarily like geography wise because most of the advertising that we've done is just targeted the United States. I mean, obviously, we only sell in the United States. Um, I have noticed it's probably a little bit more in the Midwest. It seems like there's a lot of people in the Midwest and then a lot of people in Florida. Now, I don't know. I don't think our sample size is big enough to be able to say, hey, these people are buying here more or wherever. But it's interesting about the demographics. So when I started this, kind of like I was talking about, I didn't know exactly like who the Arthur avatar was, but I was thinking it was going to be people, 25 to 40 years old that are super health conscious, kind of like health conscious millennials that are really into fitness and nutrition.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I did broader targeting on the ads just to start, and then also from doing live in person events where I would go to local festivals and stuff. And what's funny is it makes sense if you understand kind of market trends and who spends money on CPG products. But I would say like 80 to 85% are women between the ages of like 30 to 55 that have children. And I don't know this because I don't have kids, but it makes sense because I come from a big family that have kids that they want to feed something healthy to them. They want them to have a product that is made with organic ingredients like ours, and they want it to taste good so that the child is compliant and enjoys eating it. And hearing the feedback from people, that's actually like the biggest segment of customers is women in that age range. And we have there's lots of other people that buy it, but it seems like for the large part, when we understand like the customer analytic data, it's mostly women that age range that want something healthy for themselves because they're conscious about the amount of sugar they're eating, but they're also
Sure.
conscious of what
I
they're
can
giving.
see that,
Yeah,
because people, they get in their late 30s, early 40s, and they start becoming aware of their glucose and stuff. They get fatty liver disease and all this kind of stuff. And then, yeah, they don't want their children to follow the same path. So that makes total sense. You must probably think about that a fair bit, that you're influencing young people's nutritional habits and everything, so that must be a great feeling. All right, cool. So finally, are there any words of wisdom that you'd like to pass along to any entrepreneurs who are starting their own e-commerce business?
yeah. I would say the first part of it is just having belief. So for a long time, I wish I would have started this when I was younger, and I just always had this intuition to kind of start something. I didn't know exactly what it's going to look like,
Yeah.
but I would say people when you have there's this thing I've been working on my life lately is I've always been an analytical, data driven person. But when you actually, and this, I get annoyed when people say this, but then I find myself saying the same thing. When you rely on intuition to help guide your decision making, usually you're going to be on the right path. And they've actually even documented that through people like Daniel Kahneman, where he talks about, these subconscious systems that are operating that actually make quicker and better decisions rather than trying to over rationalize and overthink things. So I would say if someone, especially, okay, I've got this itch to get into e-commerce and maybe I have this idea I want to bring into the world, I would say go with that because there's very few people, we kind of with the internet, you get siloed into thinking everybody's doing what I'm doing. There's very few people that are even conscious of realizing that within in themselves and wanting to bring something to the world. And if you follow that intuition, go with it, and have the intent of actually serving people through what you're doing. So not just saying, "Hey, I'm going to be in this to make a quick buck," because it's not going to be like that with e-commerce. As you know, Mark,
Yeah.
and as I know, starting a business, it's not going to be like that. It can be in the future, but you really have to have your heart set with the intention to serve other people. And then that's what's going to help you build a business and then ultimately, hopefully, help you create something that you get more fulfillment. And like you talked about earlier, there's nothing that like makes me want to push through the harder stuff than when I get an email back from someone or I get a review from someone that says like, wow, this really made my day, to know that that was something like I had an idea about and I like went through all this stress and stuff to try to bring into the world, and to know that someone's like, wow, that made my day. That's what I do it for. And money comes and money goes. But if you're focused on serving people and you have a heart for doing that, e-commerce is a really cool way to do it. And whatever level you're at, you can figure it out. It's just a matter of going through the journey to get there. So,
Hunter, that was very inspiring. I mean that, and really appreciate that. And I appreciate your time. Thanks again for taking the time, and good stuff.
all right. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Hunter.